Have you ever felt it? That quiet, nagging feeling that you're capable of more? It's not about arrogance or entitlement. It's a deeper, more fundamental ache. It's the feeling of standing on one side of a deep canyon, looking across at a version of your life that feels richer, more vibrant, more aligned with who you truly are. You can see it. You can almost taste it. But the path across seems to be shrouded in a thick, impenetrable fog. Why is it that some people seem to have a map and a compass, confidently striding across a bridge only they can see, while so many of us are left staring into the mist, paralyzed by the sheer distance of it all? We set New Year's resolutions with fire in our hearts, only to see them turn to ash by February. We dream of starting the business, writing the book, getting in the best shape of our lives. But those dreams get filed away under someday, a folder that gets thicker and dustier with each passing year. Is it just luck? Are some people just born with an innate talent for success, a secret genetic code for achievement that the rest of us lack? Or is it something else entirely? This question, this profound gap between potential and reality, became an obsession for a man named Jack Canfield. He wasn't a philosopher or a scientist in a lab. He was a man living in the trenches of everyday life, feeling that same frustration, that same sense of being stuck. He looked at the world and refused to believe that success was an accident. He became convinced that achievement wasn't a lottery, but a recipe. He believed there were principles, fundamental laws of success that were as consistent and reliable as the law of gravity. If you drop an apple, it will fall. And Canfield hypothesized, if you apply certain principles to your life, you will rise. His life's work became a quest, a decades-long investigation to uncover, codify, and teach these laws. So today, we're not just going to review a book. We're going to retrace the steps of that journey, to understand profound truths he discovered, starting from a place of deep struggle and ending with a blueprint for a life lived without limits. To truly understand the power of the principles Jack Canfield uncovered, you first have to understand the world he came from, a world without them. He wasn't born into a lineage of success. He grew up in a modest home where the atmosphere was thick with limitation. His father was a hard worker, a man who put in 60 hours a week, yet the family finances were a constant source of stress and anxiety. His mother, struggling with her own demons, was an alcoholic. The message he absorbed, through a kind of emotional osmosis, was that life was a struggle. It was something to be endured, not created. The world was a powerful, unpredictable force, and you were a small boat tossed on its waves, your destination determined by the whims of the current and the storm. You didn't set the course. You just tried your best not to capsize. This belief system followed him into adulthood. He pursued a noble but modest career as a high school history teacher in a tough inner-city school in Chicago. He was passionate. He cared about his students, but every day felt like an uphill battle against a system designed for mediocrity. He saw sparks of brilliance in young minds, only to watch them extinguished by their environment, their own limiting beliefs, and a curriculum that felt more like a sedative than a stimulant. He was earning just $8,000 a year. He was married, in debt, and felt a suffocating sense of powerlessness. He was, in his own words, complaining about everything. The school, the principal, his salary, the government, the weather. He was a professional blamer, an expert in identifying all the external reasons why his life wasn't what he wanted it to be. This was his before state, a life defined by external circumstances. Then a door opened. He took a job with the W. Clement Stone Foundation. Stone was a self-made multimillionaire, a philanthropist who radiated a kind of energy Canfield had never encountered before. Stone was the polar opposite of Canfield's worldview. He was a man who believed, with every fiber of his being, that he was the sole architect of his own reality. He had an almost fanatical belief in the power of a positive mental attitude and the unshakable importance of taking absolute responsibility for one's life. For Canfield, steeped in a lifetime of blaming external forces, this was like hearing a foreign language. It sounded simplistic, naive, like a feel-good platitude that had no place in the real world of unpaid bills and systemic problems. He was deeply skeptical. But Stone didn't just preach. He challenged. He saw the doubt in Canfield's eyes and decided to give him an assignment. He told Jack to set a goal for himself that was so big, so audacious, that it would be impossible to achieve with his current way of thinking. After much internal debate, a terrified Canfield set a goal that felt absurd: to earn $100,000 in the next year. This was more than 12 times his current salary. The very act of writing it down felt like a fraud. Every cell in his body screamed that it was impossible. His mind immediately flooded with all the reasons it couldn't be done, all the external obstacles, all the personal deficiencies. He was a history teacher, not a businessman. He didn't have the connections. He didn't have the skills. The economy wasn't right. It was a litany of blame and helplessness. He had taken the first step by setting a goal, but he was still trapped in the prison of his old mindset, standing at the very beginning of a quest he didn't even know he was on. The immense gap between his $8,000 reality and his $100,000 goal represented a chasm he would have to cross, and he had absolutely no idea how to build the bridge. The first plank in that bridge, the foundational cornerstone of his entire philosophy, was delivered to him not as a gentle suggestion, but as a stark and uncompromising directive from his mentor, W. Clement Stone. Canfield would come to his boss with his complaints, his list of obstacles, his very valid reasons why things were difficult, and Stone would listen patiently before cutting through it all with a single, devastatingly simple piece of feedback. He would look Canfield in the eye and say, "You have to stop blaming other people and events for your life. You have to take 100% responsibility for your life and your results." This was the first great breakthrough. It wasn't just an idea. It was a fundamental shift in the locus of control, from external to internal. Canfield had spent his entire life believing in a simple, flawed equation: event equals outcome. The bad economy, the difficult boss, the childhood trauma. These were the events, and they directly produced the outcome of his unhappiness and lack of success. But Stone was proposing a new, revolutionary formula. Event plus response equals outcome. The event itself, Canfield learned, is neutral. It's just a thing that happens. The traffic jam, the critical comment, the market downturn, these things are not in our control. We can't change them. The fatal mistake most of us make is pouring all our energy into wishing the event were different. The secret, the source of all personal power, lies in the middle of the equation: our response. While we can't control the event, we have absolute 100% control over our response. And it is our response, and our response alone, that determines the final outcome. This concept completely rewired his brain. He realized that for every complaint he had, he was abdicating his power. By blaming the school system, he gave up his power to innovate his teaching methods. By blaming his salary, he gave up his power to create new sources of income. He was waiting for the world to change, when the only thing he ever had the power to change was himself. To make this principle tangible, consider the story he often tells of Raymond Aaron. Aaron was diagnosed with severe and chronic kidney disease, and his doctors delivered a grim prognosis. He would likely be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. That was the event. For many, the response would be despair, resignation, a life of managed decline. That would be an understandable outcome. But Aaron chose a different response. He refused to accept the prognosis. He took 100% responsibility for his health. He dedicated himself to becoming an expert on his condition, researching alternative medicine, nutrition, and wellness practices from around the world. He completely overhauled his diet, his exercise, his mindset. His unconventional response led to a completely different outcome, a full recovery that baffled his doctors. The event was a life sentence. The response was a pardon he wrote for himself. On a more relatable scale, think of the man who complains endlessly about his commute. The event is the traffic. The typical response is anger, frustration, and stress, which leads to the outcome of starting and ending every workday in a state of agitation. Canfield's coaching would be to change the response. Leave 30 minutes earlier. Turn the car into a mobile university by listening to educational audiobooks. Use the time for mindfulness or to call and connect with family. The event, the traffic, remains identical. But by changing the response, the outcome shifts from a source of stress to an opportunity for growth and connection. This was the key that began to unlock Canfield's own goal of earning $100,000. He had to stop seeing his salary as something his employer gave him and start seeing it as something he earned by creating value. So he changed his response. He started asking, What skills can I learn? What needs can I meet? What workshops can I create? What books can I write? The moment he stopped blaming the world for his bank account and took 100% responsibility for creating the income he desired, the entire landscape of possibility began to change before his very eyes. He wasn't a victim of his paycheck anymore. He was the creator of his value. This first principle was a liberation he had been searching for his entire life. Taking 100% responsibility was a profound liberation. It felt like being handed the steering wheel of a car you thought was on autopilot. Suddenly, Jack Canfield had control. He was no longer a passenger. But this newfound power created an immediate and overwhelming new problem. If he was truly the one in control, then where exactly was he supposed to go? Taking responsibility without a clear destination is like having a full tank of gas and a powerful engine, but no map and no address to plug into the GPS. You can drive around with a great deal of energy and intention, but you'll just end up burning fuel and going in circles. His $100,000 goal was a destination, yes, but it felt vague, distant, and disconnected from his daily life. The sheer magnitude of it was paralyzing. He was responsible, but he was also lost. This is where the second great principle began to reveal itself, a truth that gave direction to the raw power of the first. He discovered that you must be crystal clear about why you're here and decide, with unflinching specificity, what you want. This wasn't just about setting goals. It was about excavating his own life's purpose. Why did he want $100,000? Was it just for the money itself? No, he dug deeper. He wanted it for the freedom it would provide. He wanted it to make a greater impact, to have a larger platform to teach and inspire people. The very thing he loved doing as a teacher, but felt constrained in. He began to understand that a goal disconnected from a deeper why has no emotional resonance. It's a target without a compelling reason to hit it. He began the work of defining his unique purpose, asking himself two fundamental questions. What are my greatest natural talents? And how can I use those talents to serve others in a way that brings me profound joy? This fusion of talent, service, and joy became his North Star, ensuring his goals weren't just ambitious, but also meaningful. With this sense of purpose as his foundation, he then had to translate that into concrete, actionable targets. This is where he encountered the almost mystical power of writing things down. He learned of a famous, though now debated, study conducted on the 1953 graduating class of Yale University. The students were asked if they had clear, written goals for their future. Only 3% of them did. 20 years later, researchers allegedly followed up and found that the 3% with written goals had accumulated more personal wealth than the other 97% of the class combined. Whether the study is fact or legend is almost irrelevant. The principle it illuminates is profoundly true. The simple act of converting a vague desire from a thought into physical words on a piece of paper sends a powerful signal to the subconscious mind. It transforms a wish into a commitment, an idea into a project. A goal that is not in writing is merely a suggestion. So Canfield became a meticulous goal setter, defining what he wanted to achieve in every area of his life. Financial, career, relationships, health, recreation. He wrote them down in the present tense, as if they were already achieved, infusing them with emotion and vivid detail. But even with written goals, the path can still seem too long, the mountain too high to climb. This led to a further refinement of the principle, the rule of 5. To avoid being overwhelmed, he committed to taking 5 specific, measurable actions every single day that would move him closer to his most important goal. When he and his co-author Mark Victor Hansen were trying to make chicken soup for the soul of bestseller, their goal was massive. The rule of 5 made it manageable. Every single day, without fail, they each had to take 5 actions. This could be calling 5 media outlets, sending 5 review copies to influential people, giving a talk to a new group, or asking 5 distributors to carry their book. Day after day, 140 rejections from publishers in a row, they just kept taking their 5 daily actions. It wasn't always glamorous or exciting, but it was relentless forward motion. That consistency, that daily chipping away at an enormous objective, is what ultimately creates an avalanche of success. The second principle, then, was the crucial counterpart to the first. Taking 100% responsibility provides the fuel, but having clear, written, purpose-driven goals provides the steering wheel, the map, and the daily directions to get you where you want to go. So now the machine was built. The engine, the raw power source, was a principle of taking 100% responsibility. The guidance system, the map, and the GPS was a practice of setting clear, written goals aligned with a deep sense of purpose, pursued through consistent daily action. Jack Canfield was no longer a victim, and he was no longer lost. He was taking action, making calls, creating workshops, and moving forward. The results were starting to come, but he felt there was still something missing, a catalyst that could dramatically accelerate the entire process. He saw people who worked incredibly hard and had clear goals, but still seemed to hit a ceiling, while others seemed to achieve massive success with an almost effortless grace. What was the hidden variable? The search for this answer led him to his grand, unifying aha moment, the discovery that synthesized all the other principles into a single, cohesive, and profoundly powerful system. He realized that the conscious actions of responsibility and goal setting were only half of the equation. The true accelerator was learning how to unleash the immense, untapped power of the subconscious mind. This was the grand synthesis. The practical, action-oriented principles had to be combined with the mental and metaphysical law of attraction. He understood that our thoughts, our beliefs, and our dominant feelings create a magnetic field around us. Taking 100% responsibility was the essential first step because it clears out the static of blame and victimhood that constantly signals to the subconscious that we are powerless. Setting clear, written goals is the second essential step because it gives the subconscious a precise target to lock onto. Once those two conditions are met, you can begin the work of intentionally programming your inner world to match the outer world you wish to create. The primary mechanism for this programming is visualization. Canfield studied the work of Olympic athletes who would spend hours a day not just physically training, but mentally rehearsing their events. Skiers would sit in a chair, eyes closed, and perfectly execute every turn, every jump, feeling the wind, hearing the snow, experiencing the victory in their minds hundreds of times before ever stepping onto the course. They were pre-paving the neural pathways for success. This mental rehearsal doesn't just make you feel good. It actively engages a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS. The RAS is the brain's filter. Out of the billions of bits of information your senses are exposed to every second, the RAS decides what tiny fraction you will actually notice consciously. It's why when you decide to buy a specific model car, you suddenly start seeing that car everywhere on the road. The cars were always there. Your brain was just filtering them out. By setting a clear goal and then vividly and repeatedly visualizing its achievement, you are programming your RAS. You are telling your brain, this is important. Pay attention to anything related to this. Suddenly, you start to notice things you were previously blind to, an article in a magazine that holds a key to a problem you're facing, an overheard conversation that introduces you to a potential contact, an opportunity that was right in front of you all along, but was invisible to your unfocused mind. This was the unifying theory. Success isn't just about conscious, brute force effort. It's about the elegant alignment of your conscious actions with your subconscious programming. When your conscious mind, taking responsibility and setting goals, and your subconscious mind, programmed through visualization and unwavering belief, are aimed at the same target, you create a state of coherence. You stop being a person who is fighting and struggling for a goal, and you start becoming a person who is magnetically attracting the resources, people, and opportunities needed to achieve it. It's no longer just you pushing a boulder up a hill. It's you, your subconscious mind, and a universe of newly visible opportunities all working in concert. This was the secret ingredient, the grand synthesis that transformed a set of good habits into a comprehensive system for creating an extraordinary life. We have been on a journey, tracing the path from a life of quiet frustration to one of deliberate creation. We started in that familiar place of feeling like a passenger, subject to the whims of the world around us. From there, we uncovered the first great liberation, the realization that we are and always have been the pilot through the principle of taking 100% responsibility for our lives. But being a pilot without a destination is a recipe for aimless wandering. So we learned the necessity of flight plan, the power of defining our purpose and setting crystal clear, written goals that give our journey direction and meaning. And finally, we discover the force multiplier, the tailwind that can accelerate our journey beyond what we ever thought possible, aligning our conscious actions with the vast, unseen power of our subconscious mind. This isn't just a collection of interesting ideas. It is a blueprint, a sequential, actionable plan for transforming your life, and it can be distilled into 3 core commitments. The first is to own it. Starting today, abandon the habit of blame and complaint. Recognize that every outcome in your life is a result of your responses to events. This is where your power lies. Own your finances. Own your health. Own your happiness. Your life is your responsibility. The second is to define it. You cannot hit a target you cannot see. Take the time to get quiet, to look past the noise of expectations and obligations, and decide what you truly want your life to be about. Write it down. Describe your ideal career, your perfect relationships, your state of vibrant health. Make it so clear and vivid that it feels real, creating the map that will guide your every decision. And the third commitment is to live it. This is where the inner world meets the outer world. Program your mind for success through the daily practice of visualization and affirmations, and then, most critically, take consistent, relentless action. Embrace the rule of 5. Even the smallest steps, when taken every single day, compound over time to build monuments of achievement. The principles Jack Canfield uncovered are not magic spells. They are a system, and like any system, they only produce results when they are implemented. Understanding everything we discuss today is the spark. But the warmth, the light, the roaring fire that will transform your reality comes only from action. This journey is about closing that painful gap between the person you are today and the person you know deep down you have the potential to become. If you are ready to stop being an observer of your life and start being its architect, then make a commitment to yourself right now. Join us. Subscribe to this channel, not just to watch another video, but to become an active member of a community dedicated to this kind of intentional, powerful growth. Your future self, the one living across that canyon in the life you've always dreamed of, is waiting for you to take the first step onto the bridge. Let's not keep them waiting any longer.